Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm a city's principal planner, Shubha Jangam. With me, we have TSW's planning team and city staff zoning manager Robin McDonald here. And we have a lot of activities going on today. We're going to start with a presentation which is going to be repeated at 5:45. It's the same presentation, so you don't have to be there for the second presentation, but I'm just letting you know that it's going to be repeated, and we're going to make room for the other people that are coming in. So then we are going to have some activities on the table. Welcome to join. I really want to say that I appreciate you coming in here and appreciate your time, input, and your patience as we go through this project. And our goal here is to create a concept plan that we can see, we get intuitions very soon in this area. So with that, I would like to have Nick start.
All right. Sorry, I'm not used to this TV. I was trying to make it a little brighter, and now I seem to have pulled up the menu, so I'm going to try to get rid of it. Okay, there we go. Hi, everyone. As Shubha mentioned, my name is Nick. I'm part of the planning team with TSW. We're a planning, architecture, and landscape architecture firm based in Atlanta. I'll go ahead and introduce my colleagues. Here we have Tom. He is one of our founders, our founding principal. We have Gia, who is the lead project manager on this project, and Saloni, who's one of our designers. And I am a planner by trade. I'm really excited to be here with you all. And Shubha already introduced herself and Robin. And then Bob, the community development director for the city, is part of this plan as well. So today, we have a long workshop of designing that we're going to be helping lead y'all through some activities. First, we wanted to talk about the project itself, the survey that we collected responses for throughout the month of April, why we're looking at this area in particular, and I'll go into what we're hoping to accomplish today. So we're going to go through the survey results first, and then talk about streetscapes, because as we know, Arnold Mill Road has some challenges related to traffic, and part of this plan is to figure out how to move forward on that. We're going to talk about architectural styles. There's a big component of this project that is focused on building out areas to be activity nodes. That's what was originally envisioned as part of the study that was done 10 years ago for Arnold Mill. And so we want to know what styles are appropriate for Arnold Mill. And we're just going to get your feedback on that. And then we're going to talk about next steps and do some hands-on design work. As a show of hands, who lives along the Arnold Mill corridor in the room? Okay. Since we're a small group, I'd love to go around and just ask y'all what brought you here. Start with you in the front.
I'm on the Milton Design Review Board.
Okay, awesome. Great. And then you're a resident.
Yeah, I live in the Glenview at Arnold Mill, the townhome community.
Okay.
Here on the left, and I served on their board for a couple of years. I'm just interested in development.
Excellent, great. Sir?
I live on this side of Milton, but I'm also on the planning commission.
Okay, perfect. Sir, we'll go to you next in the blue.
I'm not good English enough.
That's okay. I recognize you from the kickoff meeting. Thanks for coming back. Sir?
John Buff, I own property on 140.
Okay. Ma'am?
I live off of Cox Road.
Okay. Sir? In the white?
I'm Gene Jernigan. I'm a member here at Ebenezer, and I'm also the CEO of a nonprofit that's building a building next to me.
Right, perfect. Thank you. We got a tour earlier. That was great.
I'm Pat Miller, and I got interested because I was on the committee that did all the research to get the Eli McConnell house, and I found out in the course of all of that I'm actually distantly related to the people who built it. So
Oh my gosh.
that's my focus is historic preservation.
Got it. Thank you. And then our lovely host.
I'm Bill Humphrey, and I'm with Gene Jernigan. We're the two people responsible for overseeing this structure next door and hosting you all today. And I have an underlying motive for being here as well. I if you were there at the first meeting, I mentioned this, about 5 o'clock, I'm gonna open these doors and let y'all look at Cox Road. Trying to get on to 140.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm gonna ask you to go through these windows and look at the 200 parking spaces that we're building right out here. That we're pouring curb for right now for this building next door. And whoever is responsible for the traffic at 140 and Cox Road is, we are thinking, Gene and I are thinking right now that we're probably going to get a certificate of occupancy somewhere about November, in the November-December timeframe for that building. So if you look out here at 5 o'clock, you're going to see a nightmare. Think about that times 200. And I hope someone's really giving some thought to that because we really have to do something pretty quickly. I know there's a group that came and had a meeting and was talking about this intersection here and the whole thing.
Yeah.
There's a soccer field at the city golf and then the school right there, and it's traffic at this place can be a nightmare, and unfortunately, we're going to contribute to it significantly. So we hope that somebody's really doing some planning about that.
Well, we're going to cover that today, so and we're going to explore some of those options as part of the design process, so not to worry. We had a small enough group that I asked everyone to go around and say what brought them here. Would y'all like to, and are you close enough? Can you see okay? We don't bite if you want to come to the front. Okay.
We asked why everybody talked about why they came. We just live right around the corner.
on 140.
Right, I remember y'all from the kickoff, yeah.
On 140.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. Well, thanks for sharing. I know that, it helps us understand who we're talking to and where y'all are coming from, so this is perfect. All right, so just to review about the project in general, our goal is to develop a small area plan for the Arnold Mill Road corridor, or the character area, excuse me, in keeping with the community's wishes and Milton's rural character. So the 2014 visioning study maintained that a lot of what made Arnold Mill special is the rural character, the view sheds, the horse farms, the nature, the natural spaces that exist along the corridor. But it also explored opportunities for more connections and activity nodes in specific places to allow for a little bit of new amenities in the area. So our goal is to see if that is still the vision and iterate on that and kind of showcase what those activity nodes could look like and set up the conditions for Arnold Mill so that they would be successful and not contribute to some of the headaches that are already being experienced. So our goals for today, we want to validate community desires related to specific design elements. That involves the architectural styles that I hinted at before, the orientation of some of the activity node designs that we have prepared and are going to continue working on, but also related to streetscape sections, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Our second goal is to share the designs that we have and get your feedback, and then the third goal is to complete the designs for each activity node, which may be a goal that we take beyond this workshop, depending on how much feedback we get, but it's going to be an iterative process. This map, you can also see further back on some of the boards, but this shows where we have drawn some preliminary activity nodes that we'll be designing. One is in the very northern part of the corridor near the Chadwick McConnell House, and the other is right where we are at the intersection of Cox Road and Arnold Mill.
Can you point to where we are?
We are right here in this, to the west of Arnold Mill and north of Cox Road in this little crook right here. That's where Ebenezer Church is. So to give you all a bit of background about how we typically do a design workshop, before we come to the workshop, we understand the site, we do our best to understand the site conditions and the surrounding context and some of the challenges that are related to designing an activity node or a neighborhood or what have you. If there's a market component to the project, we understand the market conditions as well, and then we take all of that and we develop a rough plan with big ideas. We bring that to the workshop, get your feedback, work on it with you, and then continue developing the concept plans throughout the life of the project and come back to you at the very end and present our work. So that'll be our open house at the end. We'll present our finalized designs for your feedback one more time. So we're about here in the process, not quite halfway through. Our public open house is going to be August 1st, and so we're about halfway between the kickoff and the open house. And the project will go until November. We're going to really finish a draft plan and then work on code and design guidelines for the area. All right, so first things first, we're going to look at the survey results from the survey that we released and took responses through April. So this survey mostly focused on visioning. So when you envision a rural place, what features do you see? A lot of people said farms, farmland, open space, scenic views, forests, and wildlife. This was not perhaps a surprising set of answers because that's what we came into knowing that people loved about Arnold Mill. The next two questions that we asked were basically what should be preserved and what challenges does Arnold Mill Road face. We got a lot of different responses related to what unique qualities should be preserved. Trees, farmland, they're very similar to the first question. Open space, I know it's hard to see, we actually got a tremendous avalanche of responses, about 600 in total. And so it's a little hard to see this word cloud, but generally the larger the word, the more times people put it down. So again, reinforcing the rural, the nature of the rural character and the nature of Arnold Mill. The number one challenge, perhaps not surprising anyone, is traffic and congestion. And before the final responses came in, it was pretty much traffic and like everything else was tiny. So we got some more variety. There was some folks mentioned sidewalks, some folks mentioned overcrowding and overdevelopment. So those are both things that we're going to look at in the design process, and we could use your help to figure out how not to give Arnold Mill an overdeveloped feel. So we also asked about roadways. So we know that there has been talk about road widening related to State Route 140, and that GDOT has kind of hung this over the corridor for a long time without committing to doing anything specific like that. So we wanted to ask and get the opportunity to ask about how the street should feel. We're going to come back to this a little bit more later, but essentially a lot of the responses were it should still feel rural, which is not surprising, but it's a little bit more tricky to do if there are a lot of traffic problems, because widening is often a very efficient solution for traffic. So what we want to do through this plan is understand what design features will still make it feel rural, even if that is a direction that is worth exploring. In terms of the activity nodes themselves, we asked about character, and the top two responses here were small stores with familiar design and a small town downtown development, kind of like Crabapple. The other choices were suburban shopping area, which got the least number of votes, and then mixed-use villages like Birmingham Crossing. So this helps push us in a direction for how it should look and feel. We also asked about uses outside the activity nodes, and the software that we use likes to just kind of like have these bubbles bounce around while this slide is on, so hopefully that's not too distracting. But this is we're doing a small area plan for the entire corridor, so we want to know if there are changes that need to be made to the uses that are appropriate for the rest of the corridor as well. And then lastly, we asked about housing. What housing types are appropriate for the activity nodes? We got a lot of support for single-family homes on large lots, which is what's already allowed under AG1 zoning, which is the majority of the corridor. We also got some support for cottage courts, which are clustered single-family homes around a shared common space. All right, that's the whole survey. So I'm gonna toggle back here and kind of try to get the full screen again. All right. So what do these results tell us? While Milton's residents, while they span a wide range, the opinions of residents span a wide range, for the most part there's agreement that the corridor should remain rural. There's fairly strong support for the small-scale downtown development, like Crabapple, in the activity nodes, which we're going to talk, that's going to be one of the focuses for today. And for the rest of the corridor, preferred uses include mostly what's already allowed: equestrian facilities, recreational fields, large lot residential, et cetera. The way that we're going to incorporate these into the plan is we're going to take this feedback and as we design, try to keep these priorities in mind so that we're not suggesting anything that is outside of what people have said that they want. And of course, y'all are contributing to that by being here and giving your feedback as well. Any questions before we go on to the next part of the presentation? Okay.
Just to
Yes, ma'am.
clarify, the results are only on Arnold Mill, and where does it start and end? Where does your study start and end?
So I will go back to
I see
this
the map.
slide. You can get a closer in version. The two boards, it's actually divided in half to blow it up a little bit bigger. The study area extends from the Cherokee County line down to this mixed use or mixed housing development right next to Crabapple. This is the Arnold Mill character area that's in the comp plan, essentially. So that's the study area. It's about 3 miles long, and I don't think it goes more than 2 or 3 parcels on either side. Yes, sir.
It only includes the parcel that are fronting the Arnold Mill and not the one that are like beyond
Yep.
that, okay?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, my question was about the survey respondents. Are they residents of Milton or the people that live along the corridor?
We did not limit it to people just living on the corridor. It was all of Milton, I believe.
Yes.
And we do have, well, I'm actually not sure if we have zip code information, but it was advertised on the City of Milton website, and that's pretty much it.
So anybody could vote in this survey, even if it's not relevant to where they live?
Correct, yes. But I don't know that people went looking for it if they weren't concerned about Arnold Mill, because it was advertised as the Arnold Mill Small Area Plan. But it was on the City of Milton's website, yes. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about the streetscape and the traffic problem. And then we're going to go into an interactive exercise about the architectural styles, and then we're going to turn it back to the design team, and they're going to walk through some of the design work that they've done and get y'all's feedback. We also have those boards that I mentioned at the back of the room, 2 that cover the study area and 2 that allow a view of the street sections that I'm about to show up close. All right, so why are we exploring new roadway designs? It became abundantly clear from the kickoff meeting and successive meetings and trying to plan the activity nodes for this area that traffic on Arnold Mill Road has reached a point where road widening is the most efficient and probably the most essential solution for solving traffic problems. We spoke with our civil engineer that we have on staff, and he basically was like, even if you widen it to 3 lanes, it's still going to have problems down the road. We need to explore what could happen if it's widened to 4 lanes. Now, this does not mean that it will be widened to 4 lanes. There is no budgeted project on the GDOT side to say that it will be, but we need to, it's incumbent upon us to consider it as an option. I mean, during peak times, Arnold Mill Road has a level of service of D, meaning the road is near capacity. So if you think that it already can't get worse, it's not yet an E or an F, which means that it could. So I think this is one tool that we have in our toolbox to ameliorate the traffic problems. As I mentioned, a project to widen the road has been discussed but not scheduled, and through this small area plan, we have an opportunity to demonstrate community preferences for how to make the road wider without losing the rural character. Yes, ma'am.
We've been hearing and reading in the newspaper about a plan for a roundabout at Cox and Arnold Mill, one at Idris and one at King. And I don't know, is that state project or is that part of this?
It's a city, and then for sure the one at Idris, just a stone's throw, with Idris and Cox is
That's
a
it.
cooperative one with City of Roswell, because much of the right-of-way is Roswell. So the King and the Idris is not GDOT at all, no, it's local.
Okay, because I live on King, so.
Right.
So our goal with this is to identify features of ideal rural streetscapes that we can try to incorporate into a roadway design that is wider so that there aren't as many traffic problems. Some of those are in that picture. This is the picture that we asked people to refer to in the fourth question of the survey. This is a 2-lane road, this is a 2-lane road with a trail, this is a 2-lane road with a trail and a vegetated median, and this is a 4-lane road with a center turn lane. And so we basically don't want this to happen, or we would, as designers, think that this does not achieve the rural character of what Arnold Mill is. But there are elements of these three that we would like to figure out how to incorporate into a 4-lane road streetscape design. So we're going to seek your feedback, and there are boards there to, I'll be, after this presentation is over, I'll be back there to discuss those with you. And we want to try to incorporate the one that you think makes the most sense. As an example, so we try to be as well read about other typologies throughout the country as possible as planners. You have a good example on Deerfield Parkway right around the corner where it has some of those features that I talked about. That might not be perfect for Arnold Mill Road, but it is something that we could take inspiration from. You have a vegetated median, land uses that aren't right up at the street, some buffering or screening with trees and other vegetation and natural stuff like that. This is one from where I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, which is right in the middle of Research Triangle Park, very urbanized area, but you wouldn't know it driving down this parkway. It feels very pastoral, despite the fact that it's in the middle of like a research and innovation hub. So that is another good example. Sir, did you have a question?
Yes. I'm envisioning that you've got a lot of emphasis on the Arnold Mill about the traffic and stuff. And I'm here just about every day, and I see the traffic here on Cox Road. It's made some improvement, but the traffic on Cox Road is coming all the way over from 92 with people coming through here and stuff. And the left-hand turn from Cox Road to get on Arnold Mill is a significant issue. And what you have is that you have people that are getting in the right-hand turn, and they're going up, and they're going into the cemetery, they're going up further, and then making a U-turn to come back. So I'm wondering, in your focus here about Arnold Mill, what's feeding the traffic? It's not all coming down from Roswell and Milton and Crabapple on 140. These streets that are feeding into it are especially Cox Road.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So we have one engineer on our staff, and he has helped us figure out what needs to be done to the congestion on Arnold Mill. So to your point, there are other things to consider, and I think that could be part of a larger traffic-related study, that this doesn't necessarily contemplate the full scope of that. What I will also say is that the Arnold Mill Small Area Plan is an opportunity to explore some of those, without getting too technical about it, some of the options at hand. One of those is making connections to other roadways, as part of maybe the activity nodes, for example. So that's something that we're exploring for sure that could take some of the pressure off of Cox Road and other feeder streets, to not exacerbate the traffic problems, if that makes sense. So we are looking at that. I don't know that it will be, I don't know that how deeply we're going to look at anything beyond the study area boundary. I think that's also a question for peer jurisdictions like Roswell and Cherokee County, and maybe it's it can be a bigger conversation than this. So we have three street sections prepared to show y'all, and again, I encourage y'all to come back if you're interested in this, come back and look at them a little bit more closely. So the first section is intended for rural sections of Arnold Mill outside of activity nodes. So this is just, where we're not proposing new activity nodes to be constructed. So all of these are 4-lane road parkway concepts with a forested median, but really the main differences is how the trail, we have a trail off to the right-hand side on the Milton side of Arnold Mill, how the trail is treated. So in this street section, the trail is rectilinear trail and separated by a 16-foot buffer between the trail and the roadway. And there's we've added a Milton fence in there. Section 2 is for areas with more rolling topography where you might need the trail to be a little bit more curvy to accommodate for the topography, but it's still bordered by a rural condition because it's outside of the activity nodes. Section 3, the trail is brought closer to the street with less of a forested median between the trail and the roadway to allow for some of that. You know, if you're on the trail, it makes sense to stop and go off to the activity nodes without having to cross a wide buffer of rural land. So those are the 3 street sections, and we have these yellow and blue lines are where they are best intended to go. And so we have this closer up on a map there in the back. But I wanted to gauge y'all's thoughts on these kinds of street sections at first glance. Any feedback for us? Does this achieve the rural, something like this, would it achieve a rural feel on a larger roadway? Yes, sir.
How much more easement is required?
So the right-of-ways range from 110 to 120 feet. So I think that's a procedural question for Shubha and Robin, but that the roadway would be the right-of-way would be 110 to 120 feet.
What's the existing right-of-way width?
Gia, do you remember?
It's just
Varies. They're not consistent, but most of them are like
60,
70,
70.
right now. But considering, you know, that in this area, the zoning is, you know, rural zoning, they require a huge setback anyway.
Right.
So, yeah, they should be able to accommodate within those. And the minimum is actually 100 to 120.
Oh, sorry, 100 to 120. Thank you.
It depends on how the availability of, you know, the condition, yeah, land.
Yep.
How does it tie in to the existing sidewalks?
So I'm not aware of there being many existing sidewalks.
I think that there is only up to the townhome, they have sidewalks, and then it's kind of ends over there, right?
After New Providence,
Yeah.
it's pretty much no
Yeah,
sidewalk.
so this section here, we have labeled limited right-of-way because we are still contemplating how to design the street section so that it would make sense in this area. But I also think that this area already is the least
Sidewalk.
rural part of the corridor, and so we're not necessarily as concerned with introducing those rural elements to that part of the roadway, if that makes sense.
I mean, don't you kind of have to solve the traffic problem here at this intersection and the roadway improvements prior to designing what the pathways and things like that look like? I mean,
Yeah, go for it.
The basic commission that we were doing was not really to solve the traffic issue. It came up because of comments we got. And the decision I made as the partner in office was that we need to find a street section that you all can hang your hat on and be proactive about this, because I've dealt with DOT for 30 years. And I've won battles with DOT when the city and the constituency was committed to the design. And one of the factors is Alpharetta. If you look at the downtown Alpharetta, I was responsible working and hired by Alpharetta to come up with a design to accommodate their urbanism that they wanted versus a crappy, you know, car sewer. So we decided collectively when we talked about this that we've got to design this, just come up with a minimum street section that feels very rural. The two photos that Nick showed are, I give them a B. I want them even more rural. I mean, I want it to be your trees, various sizes, various types, not marching in a row, nothing that has an urban feel to it. I love the idea. I think Nick came up with the fence along that, because that sort of defines and is iconic to Milton. So we have one traffic circle that you'll see when I've designed that we suggested Cox and Arnold Mill at that point, but that's all we're doing right now is a suggestion. The next phase, if y'all can, there's gonna be a 4-lane highway. I mean, I'm sorry, highway, that's the wrong, a 4-lane road. And there's no, you know, we could really demand to have a 2-lane road or a 3-lane, but ultimately you're gonna get run over because of the growth that's just there. I mean, it's just happening. So I want to give you as much ammunition so the city will back you and go for this design that we come up with. So this is a critical design, but we're not going to get any further, deeper into the woods on this. We have to stay at a higher level at this point.
So you're essentially saying, like, we all come up with a community consensus on what the design looks like, and that gets incorporated into whenever the traffic situation, the expansion of the road.
Right, I mean, I think what Tom is trying to explain is, and what we've talked amongst ourselves as staff and TSW, is that we know, ultimately, I believe that GDOT's gonna wanna widen it. So instead of them telling us, this is what it's gonna be, we're gonna offensively be on the offense and say, this is what our community wants, this is what it is, plop, you do this if you're gonna do it. So,
and by documenting your wishes over here with this project, that actually gives us leverage to say, look, we have already talked about it, and this is what our people want.
And let me tell you what the DOT does. Here's their mode of operation. They're gonna come and design it, and they're gonna take it to a certain point, and you're gonna say, no, we don't want that. So, oh, well, we've already got it into this level, we can't go back, and it pisses me off beyond any words that they do that, but that's their sort of operation. They just try to get it in, and they're not worried about the community. They're worried about getting the people through the road to the other communities. I mean, and the perfect example, I think I said this in the first time, is not Norcrest,
Johns Creek.
Johns Creek, thank you. I mean, they let it happen, and man, they're never going to solve their problem. They're already in trouble, and I don't think they can fix it. We have a chance to control that destiny.
Makes sense.
What Tom, Shuba, and Robin have all brought up is that this plan is a commitment to a vision for Arnold Mill. It doesn't necessarily promise that it's going to solve traffic problems, but it's going to be an alternative that when somebody who is responsible for trying to solve the traffic problem comes, you can say, well, great, we need the traffic solved, but here's what we want it to look like. Same with the activity nodes. If a developer comes and is looking for support to do the development concept or the city partners, then they will refer to this document to say this is the vision that we presented and agreed upon going forward.
So I've got a comment and a question.
Yes, sir.
The comment is that don't believe hardwoods in the mediums, no, DOT's not allowed that. I mean, I think
Well, it has to be 8 feet from the curb. And I mean,
you didn't allow hardwood in the medium?
as long as it's 8 feet off the curb.
I know they didn't allow it on 120 or 141 at Johns Creek. And I think one thing they did do is they created an overlay district that related to pretty much everything.
It's a speed limit. I've won this battle against them 4 or 5 times now. And well, I mean, we have a traffic engineer that is very progressive, but I've won, as long as it's 8 foot back and the speed limit's going to be a real critical issue. We have to keep it below 30 or something, or maybe at 35 or below through that section again.
How do you do
I hope that's all you want is a slow moving traffic through here. Anyway, I mean,
She's not
the
copying.
traffic issue
Does
gets
she know
taken.
that
You
I
have
sent it?
consistent movement of even 25 miles an hour versus the traffic
Tell
here.
her that I
The cars
sent
go
Bob
much faster.
PDF.
They're staying still. So that
Tell her that I sent Bob a PDF. I emailed Bob. Hey.
Opposed violence, and to a large extent, so is Cherokee. But I think what's happening is traffic is getting so bad and so unbearable, the tides are starting to turn. I know that Cherokee is actually starting to embrace the idea of widening north of us.
Yeah, if you see
It will wind up being, it's not something that's going to happen next year. This is stuff that takes usually
years,
20 years to make happen.
Well, we just got to give you the ammunition to be ready for, because this comes, and hopefully, stay the way it is now in the foreseeable future. So this is really something that, again, in the city will be approved by the city when it does happen, there's one of your children are ready to go to battle.
But is the next scope an actual overlay district as it relates to everything outside of streetscapes, landscapes, and?
Yeah, so part of the scope of our project is based on the designs that we have gotten, not consensus, but community support for. We will be exploring code and design guideline updates to, if we need to make changes or adopt additional things, then we can make that recommendation to the city and we can pursue that. So it's really derived from the designing that we're going to be doing. That is an option that we're considering.
What's the chances of putting the roundabout on the state highway?
GDOT loves roundabouts. They love roundabouts. So yeah, they really do. They're putting them in rural Georgia in a lot of places. So I think that he would have their approval. But again, what you want to do is, if we can get the design, then we give them the roundabout we want versus what they'll do. I mean, again, it's better for us to be the chicken and give them the egg.
Yep.
Did that happen down 140 at, is it Embry, or where they installed the roundabout?
I don't know how
Was that the design developed by the community? I guess it's more Roswell.
It is, it's still GDOT there.
But that's
It's still
GDOT,
a
right?
state road.
Right, that's what I'm asking. Like, did GDOT dictate how that was designed, or did it have influence from the community around there?
We don't know that.
You don't know.
It's a 4-lane highway roundabout, it's pretty huge.
No, you can keep them to about 120-foot diameter.
Yeah. So these are all great questions for when we are actually looking at the maps and doing the designing activity. I want to keep us moving so that we have enough time to do that, because that's a crucial part. I'll just touch on one more street-related thing, which is that the 2014 visioning plan, I think I alluded to this earlier, proposed 2 new roadway connections, an extension of Cox Road to New Providence Road, and also a new road following power line easement from State Route 140 to New Providence Road as well. When we get to the design activity, we are going to talk about some of those options, or it could come up in conversation. So I just want you all to flag that, that's what the 2014 study said. That's not. We are looking for your feedback of whether that's still something that you think is appropriate. But when we get to the design activity. All right, so I'm going to ask everybody to take out your phones, and if you were at the kickoff meeting, you'll know the song and dance. There's a QR code that I want you to scan in a minute. Essentially, what we want feedback on is existing regulations in the Milton Unified Development Code have really strong guidance for building design for commercial and institutional uses, basically non-residential uses, for the Arnold Mill corridor. There are fewer guidelines for any residential or agricultural uses. What we want to ask you is which design features make the most sense for Arnold Mill Road. I'm going to show you lots of pictures and lots of sketches and kind of talk through some of the styles. I'm not an architect, so forgive me if I'm clumsy. And based on previous feedback, we heard that Crabapple's architectural styles could be appropriate for Arnold Mill. Maybe not all 8 of them, maybe all 8 of them, we're not sure. So there are about 8 that are allowed or permitted in the code. No matter what styles are chosen, the character of the area should remain rural, and that is our focus. So this is for the activity nodes and the activity nodes only. So if y'all could scan this QR code, or if you open up your web browser, you can go to www.menti.com and put in that code. And when you're there, just hit the thumbs up button so that we see how many people are approving of this instruction slide. There are paper handouts if you would like to use those instead. Saloni, could you pass out the paper? Oksana's, yeah, perfect. All right. And if you need help with the QR code, you can ask one of our staff. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to take us through all 8 of these styles that are appropriate for the Crabapple area, which is what we're using as inspiration. The first style is a vernacular architecture style. Yes? I sure can. The code is also on those handouts. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I apologize if I came in a few minutes late, so perhaps I missed this when you spoke earlier. But you keep using the term activity node. Have you described that? What are we looking at?
That is a great question. Thank you. So an activity node is the term we're using for clusters where new development could be appropriate for Arnold Mill. The 2014 plan identified the northern portion near the Cherokee County border and also Cox Road and Arnold Mill as two potential activity nodes. At the kickoff meeting, we asked about this and we got general support for that, and then we sketched out some areas that we could look at. And that's part of what we're hoping to hone in on today is if those boundaries are right and what the designs look like. An activity node is mostly just a concentrated pocket of development that could be commercial, could be institutional, could be residential, but we're open for suggestions.
But your cluster, you're increasing density basically, is what you're saying.
Potentially, there's nothing been decided.
Yeah.
This is all
Well,
very.
I'm trying to get in my head what we're looking.
So
what
it.
are we being asked to think about?
Well,
Is it
when I'm
commercial?
gonna sit down with you all with the design, I'll show you some designs I've done, and I have various levels of density on there, where it's very low or not, or no density, or lots of density, so.
So my question is to have any kind of cluster anything with no sewer, no zoning change, and an Ag 1 area. Where do we go?
I take
What
that
else
into
is there?
consideration. I took that into consideration for the sewer part of it, and I'll explain that to you.
Okay, so stay tuned. is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Discuss on detail.
Yep. All right, so this is our first of 8 styles, the vernacular style. This is picture like not a colonial necessarily, but something very simple with simple materials, brick or wood. These pictures are some good examples of residential versions of this style. It's characterized by pencil post columns, very thin embellishments, generally earth tones, and very like 45-degree angled roofs. So our question for this one is, you'll see a scale bar pop up on your phone screen from 1 to 5, 1 being not appropriate, 5 being very appropriate. How appropriate is this style for Arnold Mill's activity nodes? We have someone who has said 5 immediately. All right, this one seems very polarizing. Can someone who really likes this style or think it's very appropriate, would you be willing to comment on why? Or what you like about it?
It's very simple, straightforward.
Straightforward.
Perfect for this area.
It feels historic.
Feels historic,
But
okay.
it's really clean.
Mm.
But I don't know what the next other ones are.
Perfect.
What does?
All right.
I don't know what's coming.
Maybe I should have put this at the end so that you can revise your answer as well. Well, the next one is Queen Anne. Queen Anne styling is a little bit more intricate and elaborate. The buildings are usually asymmetrical, whereas the vernacular one was very much like you could cut it in half and it would be the same on both sides. Queen Anne's tend to have L shapes or embossed areas where I'm really not an architect, where it juts out a little bit. Steep roofs with gables and folksy ornaments, wood, and then a little bit more brighter in terms of the color palette, sage, amber, gold, that kind of thing.
And by the way, y'all can like all of them or none of them,
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be one style, there can be multiple styles. They're all compatible in many ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're not ranking, you're just saying how much you think it would fit along Arnold Mill. All right, strong middle of the road performance for Queen Anne so far. I don't know that she would like that very much. All right, anybody willing to talk about their choice for this one? just average, provoking neutral feelings. Okay? All right, moving on. Our next style is Greek Revival. So this is a style that's popular on, well, I guess, I don't know that this is actually true. You'll see this in some of the homes in historic neighborhoods in the South. They have fluted or square columns, some bold classical details, a lot of masonry, white, cream, and light gray tend to be the colors. Not quite the kind of like neo-colonial look that you see on some college campuses, but kind of one step back from that. How appropriate is this style? All right, a 5 right out the gate. Creeping down. Some strong polarizing feelings. Does anybody want to talk about why they think this is or is not appropriate for Arnold Mill? Yes, sir.
I think it is more reminiscent of older historic neighborhoods than the rural spread out feel.
Got it. Okay. Anyone extremely in favor of it that wants to defend Greek Revival? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Milton only controls one side of the street. So how much cooperation or planning with Roswell is there going to be? Because it would look really strange if Roswell does something totally different.
Well, we are in contact with Roswell planners, and right now we have Catherine from Cherokee County here, attending our meeting. So just an example, we're trying to cooperate and coordinate and look at it together.
Yep. And keep in mind that we're mostly asking about the activity nodes, which will, mostly be on the Milton side.
I thought that same thing, when I look at the map, it looks like most of it is Milton there.
Yeah, most of the character area.
I was surprised. I thought everything on the south side was all Roswell.
There is a big portion on the south side that is part of the city of Milton, but a lot of it, especially towards the northern side, is all of Arnold Mill is all on the eastern side of the road. All right. Gothic. So Gothic, the most prominent characteristic of the Gothic style is its steep roofs and kind of curved features that end in a point. So you'll see a lot of windows or rafters that kind of curve upwards and end in a very sharp point. They tend to have these kind of hall and parlor house frames where you have, it's a horizontal to the roadway, but then there's a vertical section that juts out towards the street. And a lot of the materials are the board and batten materials, which is often what you get when you get the modern farmhouse aesthetic, which we'll also talk about later. So how appropriate is the Gothic style? Keep in mind, these are all technically permitted under the Milton UDC for crabapple.
For crabapple area, we have this approved already.
Yeah.
We're just trying to find out, are they also good for this area?
Yeah. All right, so we've got neutral in the middle. What are people's feelings about this one? Do they feel that fits, kind of could and couldn't? Anyone want to expound upon your choice?
I see different uses of materials in the image anyways, with the tin roof, for example, or the porch. So to me I like the use of different materials.
Got it. Okay, that's good feedback. Thank you. All right. All right, Colonial Revival. So this is kind of an iteration on the vernacular style, but a little bit more modernized and a little bit more ornate. Not too much, but a little bit. You have the same simple building form that's very salt boxy. You have full front porches in a lot of cases. Windows that are kind of all in a line or ganged is what they call. Brick is a big material here. And you have some classical ornaments as well in the trim on the buildings. So how appropriate is this style for Arnold Mill? Awesome. Okay. Anyone want to talk about your choice here, yay or nay? We have some people who are voting 5s on every one. I know that you're out there. Or at least we get 1 5 every time, so maybe it's Shuba. All right, we're going to keep it moving. So style 6 is Italianate. You'll see a lot of these types of buildings if you go to any kind of Midwestern city. The same ornamentation is on them. They have really tall windows with kind of like a curved top. Some ornamental columns, pretty ornate ornamental columns, large doors, earth tones, brown, terracotta, gold, that kind of thing. How appropriate is this style? I think some of the crabapple buildings, the black ones, have these kind of lattice columns. All right, this one's inching a little bit farther down. Anybody want to explain why they voted yay or nay? We have 2 more to get through, then you're released from this.
It's more like New Orleans than rural Georgia.
It does have some New Orleans styling to it. I think my architect peers would call that Beaux Arts, not Italianate, but you know, it's similar. Yes, see? I work at an architecture firm. All right, the second to last style is Adam or Federal. These are characterized by very like regal-looking materials. You can have it's a lot of white, a lot of columns, that kind of thing. All right, not so popular on this one. Anybody want to talk about why for this? Okay, Shuba hates it. All right. The last one is the modern farmhouse aesthetic. I don't have a sketch for this one because it's more of an aesthetic that is applied to to buildings rather than a form. You'll see a lot of these, the kind of board and batten style with it's wood, but then has the cross beams vertically like this. A lot of the new ones are white with dark accents, large windows, and they usually face the street. How appropriate is the modern farmhouse style? Very popular. Okay, sure, Shuba. Anybody want to explain why this one?
That's American's farmhouse. Everybody loves that here.
Yeah?
We have a neighborhood lunch group, and I went to that recently and we discussed it. And one of the things that my neighbors have a pretty strong feeling about is that in Crabapple, if they build one more building that looks exactly like it's bad. And the same thing with the white farmhouses, we're getting too many of them. They wanted to see a diversity of architecture.
Gotcha. Do you agree with them?
Yes, I do.
Well, you got to vote 1 if it's not appropriate.
I didn't put it
You're
down as
asking
one.
us to choose one. I mean, you all are thinking in terms of which of these styles should we be looking at. Suppose we like more than Vicksburg style.
Sure. Well, I apologize if I wasn't clear. You're not ranking them your favorite to your least favorite. We're just asking how much you think it fits with Milton, with Arnold Mills aesthetic. If you don't think that it fits with Arnold Mills aesthetic, then you can say that. But you know, we're going to try to take that into account when we're thinking about the design guidelines piece. So if you don't think that this is appropriate, then I would encourage you to vote 1 all the way.
May I say something?
Yes.
So I think maybe where people are torn is that the modern farmhouse style is still very much in, especially in Milton. But on the DRB, we're seeing a lot of requests for not white. The white, traditional white with the black trim is going out of style, and people are requesting more of the darker, more moody, bringing in some colors. But the modern farmhouse style is staying. It's just the colors is shifting.
Okay, I
Colors
gotcha.
shifting very rapidly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the picture of that, it's
Yes.
different colors and it's a little styled
We're
differently,
seeing a lot of
but it's the
black,
same feel.
just dark,
Yeah.
charcoal.
I
So
see.
we are seeing, and on the DRB, we also collectively are not totally in favor for white with the dark trim anymore.
Got it.
And even I'm on the ACC for our neighborhood. I live in downtown Crabapple, so we're seeing the requests for white decreasing.
Got it.
for
Okay.
Even just in downtown Crabapple.
Okay, that's helpful. I am not as up on the color trends, so that's good to know. Yes, sir.
Well, I think one of the things Milton is struggling with is a feeling of place, right? So when you get into Milton, you know it's Milton.
Right.
And that whole placemaking, and this obviously is proliferated through Milton. On the west side, there's not so much. On the east side, you got Alpharetta and all that, which looks very similar to this.
Sure.
So I think too, how do we blend that? How do we know that we're here? So we don't have all these, little pockets that look this way and this way and this way. That's a gateway, right? I mean, coming in from the north, that's a very important gateway for people when they come into Milton to know where they're going. So how do we tie that in? Would be my concern.
Got it. Okay. Good to know. Well, part of the design activity is going to be figuring out the site plan aspect of the activity nodes, and we can come back to this kind of how we have an appropriate mix of uses that makes it feel Milton, or mix of styles that makes it feel Milton. But I really appreciate y'all going through this activity with me, and I'm thankful for you voting on 8 different styles. So that's great. Right now, we are going to transition to working on some of the design work. And Gia, I don't know if you wanted to talk people through what is going to be happening.
Yeah. So basically, we'll break up into tables. Tom, because he already developed some concept plans, very rough concept ideas for the 2 activity nodes. So he will be working with most of you who are interested. Because there are 2 sites, and maybe 20 minutes for each site, but we'll have additional time later. It's not, but initially 20 minutes for each activity node. Yes. And we also have an overall, in terms of the roadway configuration, we have an overall big map for just conceptual how the right-of-way will apply throughout the corridor. If you're interested, like you have a property, you want to see how that right-of-way might affect your property, and you can come see me. I will be with that map and explain to you, and discuss whether this section applies appropriately here or other locations. Yeah, and we also will have the board, and Nick and Salome will be with the board to explain to you about further detail, other aspects of the sections, and any other comments you may have.
All right. And I will leave a next step slide up so that if you want to refer to it, you can. The big date in the future is August 1st is when we're going to have our open house. So let's gather around the tables.
Are they going to have another round of presentation again?